Um, oh, it's so hot today. Very muggy. Trying to stay cool. Anyway, um, uh, Mercury, natal Mercury. What does it represent? Um, in astrology, carries carries very very interesting aspects. Um, all the planets do. So one of the things I've learned about astrology is each planet with their mythology behind it, what they hold. They carry some type of aspect that might not deal with Greek mythology, but one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast was the fact is, um, tradition wise, each planet holds something, that some type of energy, or holds an aspect of basically things that happen while while there's like a transit, while there's like an action or a piece of action that happens. So I'm going to go through all the planets in my other podcasts, and if you're just listening to a different platform, I'm on YouTube. I think the other platforms, they just don't hold the videos as much. Um, but you can see most of my videos on YouTube. I'm trying to get onto different platforms, and um, going back to these planets, Mercury, natal Mercury. So when you're born, the planets are called natal planets, and Mercury, natal Mercury, is stationed in your natal chart, and it doesn't move. Depending upon where it is, what sign it is, it doesn't necessarily mean it'll be in your sign of birth. Sometimes Mercury goes backwards. It's called Mercury retrograde. So it goes back, swings back. It could go either swings back into a different sign, your previous other sign, or the sign that's ahead. So anyway, um, natal Mercury represents communication. Um, could represent friends, communication, money. Um, it's it's also your voice. It's your chatterbox. It's what you uh, it's where your voice is. So if you look at it this way, like a natal Mercury in a water sign, either it's Pisces, water signs are Pisces, uh, Scorpio, or Cancer, depending upon if like your Mercury was in one of those signs, it would hold the flavor or the energy of those signs, and you could see it in the person. So, um, um, water signs are very emotional. Sometimes they're not. Pisces isn't as emotional. It's very quiet, but they're very emotional up front. Um, they're very warm. Um, it could be. I think it's a little bit of a bad rap, but natal Mercury, if your natal Mercury is in Scorpio, Scorpios have just a very bad rap. I think it's just it's kind of odd. I think the interpretations throughout time have been really skewed with that sign, unfortunately. But if your natal Mercury is in Scorpio, Scorpios hold this type of very, very strong, dominant energy. So if your Mercury is in Scorpio, and maybe you're a Libra in Scorpio, or maybe you're Sagittarius and your natal Mercury's in Scorpio, your language or how you speak could have like a lot of dominance or be very emotional, fast talking. And you could see that in the person, or you could see it in yourself. But it's not necessarily a bad thing, because theoretically there are nothing's really bad in astrology. Astrology is just something like, it's a gift of self-realization. So if you learn astrology, you learn about it. You can learn more about yourself through the interpretations of what you learn. Um, but unfortunately, I think those interpretations throughout time have been changed and skewed, and I want to try to prevent that. Mm, because obviously, like, a lot of people, first of all, like, all, all of planets go into a phase called retrograde. They go backwards. They go backwards in certain periods of time. Like, I think Jupiter goes backwards, if I'm correct. I think it's once every year. Anyway, Mercury goes back like sometimes 4 times a year, for 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. And I had the fortunate privilege to talk to Robert Hand once, a famous astrologer. If you never picked up his book is like a Bible. Robert Hand, um, transits. Let me see. I could I could just Google this and find out what's his book. I had a privilege of talking about Merc, and he's a really nice guy. Um, Planets in Transit. Yeah, it's a great book. It's like a Bible. He spent a long time to just interpret um, his um, his interpretations of a lot of different transits. Um, you could buy it on paperback, but I think you get you could get around different places, bookstores, like, just uh, it's a great book. Um, had the fortunate thing to talk to him about Mercury retrograde, and he apparently, this is his book, Planets in Transit. Excellent book. It's thick. It's big. It's thick. It's a really thick book, and he was just a great guy, uh, and he told me he felt that that people got, skewed Mercury retrograde as time went on, because now people fear Mercury retrograde is going to break up certain things, and it's not really the planets that affect you. You affect the planets. All the planets are is, it's just like a compass. It just tells you what's going to happen at that time. It doesn't mean it's going to affect you. So Mercury retrograde, when Mercury goes backwards, basically, um, even that is just, based on interpretation. Uh, he actually said to me that he felt really bad that people have skewed that interpretation to such a degree of being paranoid from it, which is sad. Uh, Mercury retrograde. You could be born under a Mercury retrograde, but it doesn't mean much. It doesn't mean anything. Mercury, natal Mercury, again, is like your voice. And depending upon what house, what sign it's under, you can see it in the person. It's clear as day. If you get to know astrology, you can really see it. So I figure I pick one guy up, do his natal chart, where his natal Mercury is, and talk a little bit about it, because apparently a lot of people, I think, with putting politics aside, a lot of people are very upset about this guy. But put politics aside and look at the guy for what he did, what he's doing, and it's kind of descriptive of his natal chart. So I'm doing Justin Trudeau tonight, and this is his natal chart, right? Just going to do a little bit of him, of his chart. I'm not going to do, well, just, whatever. He I don't know. I don't have anything against the guy. But like I said, you have to look at people for what energies they carry, and it tells you a lot. Like that Kim Kardashian one, where I just did with the natal moon. Her natal moon is in Pisces, and Pisces is self, and her natal sun is, she's a Libra in the Capricorn house of 10th house. She's very successful. All right. So Justin Trudeau, according to Astro Theme, is a Capricorn 3rd degree right here. We're going to talk about degrees later. He's a 3rd degree, meaning he just came into the Capricorn season. Apparently, he is a Capricorn in the 5th house. It looks like the 5th. 5th house is enjoyment, pleasurable things, run by Leo. He is a very successful. He's a Capricorn. He probably does like doing what he's doing, whether or not you agree what he's doing. That's not me to say, but I think he enjoys doing what he's doing. He's a Capricorn in the 5th house. Fifth house is run by Leos, and Leos have that energy of doing things that they enjoy doing. They just dive into it, and they are the lions of their kingdoms. So, as a Capricorn, being successful is also like somewhat of a lion as well. He's running. He's a prime minister of Canada, and he's you know ruling the roost up there. Capricorns deal with government. They do deal with law, and they do deal with power. They're a very powerful sign. Um, where's his natal Mercury? His natal Mercury is 12 in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the teachers. They're here to teach you something. The Sagittarius is the arrow, and the arrow is pointed from heaven down to earth to give some form of justice or straighten out some type of justification. If you know Sagittarians, they are uh, they're the type of people who just come in and gradually just they come into some type of ruling, and they fix things and then they leave. That's the type of energy that they have. They're fire signs. They're here for justification and all that, whether you like it or not, whatever. Um, his natal Mercury is in Sag. So if we look back when Justin Trudeau came in, he, if I remember, um, I don't, I don't have my dates, but I do remember certain things. He came in to his government, his Canadian government. He really changed a lot in Canada. Whether you like it or not, it's a different story. But in his eyes, from what he is, his natal Mercury is Sag. He's here to teach you something. And that Sag Mercury just explains everything. So what did he do? When he first came in, took his whole parliament, he put women, all of it. Wow, everybody went crazy. They thought he was wonderful. He made international fame. And if I'm correct, if I look back, uh, if I could look back, I could imagine Jupiter having something to do with that, because Jupiter expands, and Jupiter is the ruling planet of um, Sagittarian. Sagittarian. So, okay, so getting back, he changed his parliament. He put in these hateful speech laws, which I don't know. All right, that's another thing. The Canadians have to deal with that. They have to deal with also the fact that he well, recently he did that whole thing with the protesting with the truckers. He's very vocal of trying to reform society the way he thinks, and with anti-hate speech laws and those different aspects, and it definitely shows his natal Mercury is a Sag. Depending upon I mean, I don't know so much. I'm just being very vague here, but I think, if I'm correct, his father was a prime minister, and and I think he came from a very wealthy family, if I'm correct. So that natal Mercury is also in the father house, and it's also in the family house. And Mercury represents money. It also it represents money and things that have to do with communication. Um, yeah, it has a great chart. It has really, really good chart. I mean, his Saturn is really high. It's the highest thing in this chart. I don't know what's going to happen to him in 2025 or 26 because then transiting Uranus will be on his MC. And usually that's an indication of fame on the coattails of other people. So maybe he has something to do with his father. Also, his natal moon is in uh, is in Aries, which Aries is also self zone. They're self zone and they're icebreakers. They break ice. They're the ram. They do very successful things. His language and his subconsciousness uh, might be dealing with the Aries flare. You know, I'm here to straighten this whole thing out and you know have that persona. Um, he also has some placements in the second house, uh, natal Pluto, and natal Uranus. From what I read about Uranus being in the second house, Uranus holds electrical, like shocking things, things that shock. It being in the house of material, I'm not sure how his assets are, or maybe he invested in Bitcoin. Who knows? But natal Pluto is in there too, so he has two placements in the second house. Um, Also, natal Mercury, also with his father being a politician too. Uh, it trends his moon um, at 180 degrees. Yeah, 180, right? Um, 60. It's 120. Sorry, 120 degrees. So it's a trend. Trends his natal moon. Uh, Mercury being in the fourth house and his father being popular. And he's out there in the world. He's like the lion of the jungle because he is in the Leo house. Second thing is Virgos is they're um they're not known for being so vocal. And when they are, it's not one of their best aspects. Um I don't know. Prove me wrong if you feel I am. But Virgos are good with their hands. They're here to fix things. They're good with, and I know it sounds funny, but and maybe I'm not clarifying right. Virgos, Virgos are they're not really good vocally, but they're good with the outer world. So they're good with like therapists, they're doctors, all doctors, therapists, anybody who's in health is a lot of Virgos, but they're not good. vocally. I never thought Justin Trudeau um, was good vocally. I think when he criticized Trump and Biden, he was very brazen. He was pretty, he was pretty out there. So his AC is in Virgo. Anyway, so that's that. Um, he has a good chart. His planets are pretty much spread. You could see how spread spread they're like they're spread. It doesn't mean anything in particular, but um usually somebody has them spread out. Um it's an indication of he is a very smart guy. There's no question about it. Um his he has some like a trend, like a couple of rectangles. You see how his Venus trends his natal Venus right here trends his natal Pluto, trends his MC of success. Um, very powerful. When Pluto trends MC, it's very powerful. It's the indication of power. He has it. Um, Very interesting chart. I have a tendency. I mean, I'm not Canadian, you know, but I haven't. I only know so much about him. But his natal Saturn is like almost conjunct that together with his MC over here. So that's um that's a clear indication of hardworking guy. He's just a hardworking guy, and when Saturn is that high, it's some he had to work to get there. Um, a good indication is when you do your natal chart. When you do your natal chart, see what the highest planet is on that natal chart. And usually you can see the indication of that person in their lives. So, for instance, if they have Mercury, natal Mercury, conjunct to their MC, that usually means like they're known for talking. So I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know, but somebody like I don't know, somebody like American disc jockey Howard Stern or American disc jockey um, talk show host who recently passed away, Rush Limbaugh. Depending upon where their Mercury is, if their Mercury is high, that would illustrate them in their field because their Mercury is that high, and it's a clear indication of it. Um, love or hater. It's not the indication of loving or hating a person. It's just what that person is in society. Uh, Kim Kardashian, very beautiful. She's very pretty. She's very, very smart in her business. Um, her Venus is high. Her natal Venus is high. That's the clear indication of her beauty in the 10th, or I think it's in the ninth house, but it's close to the midhaven. It's in that area. It's like the highest one around. That illustrates her. That just illustrates her energy. If you like my podcast, would you please tell friends? Would be great. I could help out with certain interpretations. What you can see is, if you get to know the stages of life in astrology, there's what's called Saturn return. There's Uranus opposition. There's if you live long enough, there's a Uranus return if you're in your 80s. When the planets do certain things, they have interpretations out there that put it right on. They illustrate and they interpret exactly what happens at that time for that person. It's unfortunate, but a lot of people just don't lean towards the self-realization. Self-realization of the chart is basically going through the natal planets and seeing the type of energy that person carries. It sounds funny, but it's so true. And it's going to take me a while to explain. And by no means, I'm not saying this politically, but Gandhi had a really tough chart. He had his natal sun, if I'm correct, was a Libra, and it was in the 12th house. A very tough chart, very tough life in that sense. And then yet, Adolf Hitler, and we all know what he did. Adolf Hitler had a good chart, but he messed it up. He he had a chart that was really Adolf Hitler, his natal chart. I gotta think when he had his son. His son was just crossed my mind. I got like so much running through my mind. Let me think. His natal chart, he was an Aries, and his natal sun was in the 6th, and it was on his DC. It's on the 6th, and he had some formations on his chart that illustrate that he had some importance in history. And whether or not importance in history, depending upon what you want to do with it, is what is important. I'm getting a little tired. Sorry. But if I'm correct, ironically, his Saturn was just as high as Justin Trudeau's very powerful. It was almost close. It was close to his MC. Adolf Hitler, compared to Mahatma Gandhi, had a better chart. He had these. Adolf Hitler had these formations that shown that he could have uh, if he had not had done what he did, he would have became even a better person. But unfortunately, he like I said, astrology is a thing where people are born with gifts and they don't even know it. If you've seen and you know your own chart, you could see. I don't know. I'm just gonna explain. If you like, for instance, if you are a pizza maker and you don't like making pizza, you get to know your natal chart and you find that communication is an open door. Like, it's a good thing for you. uh Maybe you want to make a podcast or a radio show, and then all of a sudden you make this podcast or radio show, um saying that pizza is about pizza, or maybe you're sick about pizza, but maybe you make a radio show and you find you become more successful. So unfortunately, that wasn't the thing for Adolf Hitler. So um from what I heard, he was into astrology. I don't know, but he does have these formations where he could have become um really important if he didn't do what he did. um there's some other indications that he was also his own demise, but besides that, anyway, my whole belief of my whole thing was to tell you about Adolf Hitler and Mahatma Gandhi, was to say that everybody's chart, it depends, on what you when you see yourself in it. um um mm, mm, Adolf Hitler had his Mercury on his DC. uh, uh DC is not the best place. It's just not. It's not the. It's nothing really wrong with it. It's nothing. It's like a mute point in the chart. It's like, I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's like the AC. Your AC is when you're born. What sign comes from the east? And usually, this is an indication of what type of mask you wear in society, as to say, are you emotional person? Is it a water sign? Is it a fire sign? You're very vibrant, or you're an earth sign and you do earthly things or have this earthly persona about you. The DC, the DC is like the total opposite, and they say certain things about the DC, which I don't know. Like Kim Kardashian's DC is in Gemini, and I think Kanye West is a Gemini, and it's almost like the opposite of you. So the opposite of you, personality wise, um, opposites attract. There's a lot of old marriages where people the opposite. Sister signs are opposites. Sister signs are like Capricorn and Cancer or Libra and Aries. They run across the chart, and those are sister signs. So Kim Kardashian had Kanye West on her DC. Adolf Hitler was his own demise, committed suicide. His natal son is on his DC. He was his worst enemy. So I like going by natal planets. A lot of people like to go by transits. Those transits are where the planets are now. So let's just say today's Kim Kardashian's birthday. She's a Libra, I think 28 degrees. She's here. Libra 28 degrees. So if a transiting sun is going around the chart and it matches, the transiting sun is today. Let's just say, I don't have it on top of my head, but her Libra birthday, it's 28 degrees. So once roughly the end of Libra season happens, the transiting sun, or in Libra season, comes together with her natal sun. That's her birthday. Transiting sun goes on to her natal sun. That's her birthday. Right there. It goes for everybody. It's called a solar return. Solar return. The natal Mercury tells you more than the transiting Mercury, and that's usually for all transiting. Transiting, they're okay. It's okay to follow them, but you just don't live your life by them. The natal planets, they tell you more about the person, what the person's going to go through, what the person's like. Once you get to know the degrees of the planets, once you get to know the degrees, they do make sense. They do fluctuate. They do hold certain energies, which are true, which are the interpretations from the past. A lot of people trying to destroy them. It's trying to destroy the old astrology interpretations. And it's sad. So anyway, so going back to Robert Hand, transiting planets in transition, planets in transit, very thick book. It's well worth it. Wherever you find it, you get it used or get it new. If you could get that book, get that book. That's great. So getting back to me and him having a conversation, I spoke to him. He was really bummed out on how many people have skewed natal Mercury. Not natal Mercury, transiting Mercury, where transiting Mercury is today. And when sometimes it goes retro, it's called retro Mercury. And people are paranoid and scared of it. And you can't be like that. You can't look at things like that at all. Planets don't affect you. You affect the planets. That's why I use the Adolf and Gandhi as metaphors. Gandhi had a bad chart. He was like a natal Libra, in the 12th. He had a lot of energy, a lot of tough energy to deal with this life. And yet he did a lot of beautiful things. And yet Adolf had a great one, but used it for the wrong reasons. So free will is always it's always a thing which is true. Let me see. I think anyway. I hope I made some sense. A lot of this could be extremely confusing. There's a lot of great books out there. They're very basic. I try to stay away from the karmic and past lives stuff. I don't agree with any of interpreting somebody's chart and saying to them, "Well, you're going through this because you were a really bad guy or woman or whatever in the past, and that's why you're going." No. I think once you learn your own natal chart, you could see more of yourself. I know a lot of people have natal suns in the 10th house, and they're very successful people. Of course, success is good to have, but doesn't bring happiness. It doesn't bring happiness, not at all. Human condition is very, very interesting, but um I've done a lot of charts. I've read a lot of charts. I've seen a lot of charts. I've seen a lot of things happen within charts. People have certain charts, and yeah, I think there is something to astrology. It's just sad that people people poo it so much. Yeah. So getting back to Natal Mercury, I think if you see a natal Mercury conjunct to a natal Sun, that usually means the person could be wealthy, could not, or the person's very chatty. Person's very chatty and speaks a lot and talks a lot, and that's another indication. If natal Mercury is on AC, usually means a person might be chatty too, or they might come into money. Usually, a natal Mercury on an AC is an indication of money. The person will have money. Natal Mercury in natal Mercury on your MC. It on the MC, it could be fame. Voice could carry out for far distance if your natal Mercury is on your MC. DC, there's not much to say. see is just like a mute, just a mute. Mercury on IC. Yeah, it's okay. Um, it's it brings your voice more. I think in bottom half is usually more of a mute, um, not mute, like low tone. They're like more of a low tone kind of thing. Uh, Mercury conjunct to Neptune could be very, very verbal in mysticism. Mercury conjunct to Uranus could be that the person speaks with a sharper tone, like they could speak in a louder um, way or more abrupt. Mercury with Venus, they could speak very lovely. I knew a girl, knew a woman that had Venus and Mercury together. She had Mercury and Venus together, and she had what's called a triangle, a triangle from her Mercury and Venus going to MC. From MC went down to her natal sun. Her natal sun went down to something else, I forgot, and then went back up to her Mercury and Venus. And she loved to sing. She would just sing, sing, sing. And her mother used to tell me, "Oh yeah, she loves to sing. She just loves to sing, and she sings beautifully, and but never had like uh, no ambitions of becoming a singer." But I think she was a natal. Her son was a natal Gemini, but she never wanted to become a singer. But she sang a lot. Mercury and Venus were together, were conjunct. I and I was I always try to encourage people to learn astrology because once you learn astrology, you could see it for yourself. You could see it for yourself. And yet, she it wasn't there for the mother or the child. Sad. You miss out. And but anyway, um Mercury with Jupiter, voice goes into places far beyond who knows. It's very good transit. Um Getting back to I just wanted to say in addition, I like Astrology King. He's out there. He's a really good guy. His interpretations are very accurate. I find him very accurate. Very nice guy. I think he's in Australia, but a lot of his stuff is just brilliantly researched. I really like this guy a lot. Astrology King. He apparently did an article about the Nazis and the Nazis, their their um, charts and the generals. Astrology King, and it's in Nazi horoscopes. So apparently, he did really deep research and did several of Hitler's generals. And you don't know anything much about World War II or um, what happened or anything. Let me share something with you. Just a brief um, something that fits into this article. Um, uh, World War World War I left Germany in debt. They were um, basically um, demolished. There was just no economy and stuff like that. Uh, um, Hitler's Hitler's generals. Um, I'm assuming they came from that era and of seeing their country decimated and ruined, and with from Hitler's energy and hatred and fueling fire, um, brought up these um, these guys to listen to him. Actually, um, his generals had a rough time in the very beginning because they were stricken with poverty and all that, right? So it turns out that Astrology King, this article is fascinating, great article. Uh, he did a research on all the generals and found that all the generals had a formation called the yod. And this formation called the yod indicated many generations that the yod, in the sense to say of fate, the fate of either, you know, good or bad, fate. And it depends upon the native of the chart of whether or not they're going to follow it. So, Astrology King did an excellent job on this aspect and realized that a lot of Hitler's generals had the same um, formation. Just a superb article, and one of them, I forgot what it was. I think it was gerbils or something like that, or of the communications or something like that. His natal is his natal, if I'm correct, natal his natal Mercury was in that formation of the odd, and he apparently he was a director of communications. This is just an excellent research. Did just a superb job. Um, all his generals had the same formation, and I'm assuming all his generals went through the same thing, and yet they did terrible things. They did horrible things. Um, um, yeah. So anyway, um, Astrology King. Um, his interpretations are really great. No karma, no past life stuff. Just basic astrology. It's a very hard thing to find. Very hard thing to find. I mean, you pay an astrologer $150, $200 an hour, and they could tell you um, what you should know. You could find out easily by studying books. I apparently like Liz Green. Liz Green is excellent. Liz Green is a great author. And from what I found out, that a lot of um, these old astrologers, what I found out was that they don't do they don't do natal charts anymore. They just it's a thing where I don't know. I seriously think I'm assuming. Um, I tried contacting many of them, and many of them I did get in contact with, and a lot of them I've spoken to. And a lot of them just, they're just, they don't want to do it. Liz Green, great astrologer, wrote many great books on astrology. Her best one of the best ones is this one, Astrology of Fate, is excellent. Most of them are. They're excellent. I really do like her as an author. Um, trying to find the one that's the best one. Ah, uh, um, no, find it. It's called The 12th House. It's with a friend of hers who passed away. Um, oh boy, I just messed this up. Oh, here we go. All right. The 12th House is with Howard Stepurus. She co-wrote it, and it's an excellent book. Here it is, 12 Houses. Excellent book about astrology. I actually looked at his book, his natal chart. I should do it. He passed away in the 80s. And when he passed away, if I'm correct, if I remember right, he here's his chart. He had a very interesting thing happen to him. In his chart, here it is. He he was an Aries, and when he passed away, transiting Pluto was on his MC, and Pluto represents sex and death. It could bring either one. On an MC, for a woman, it could, it doesn't mean necessarily death, but for a woman, it could mean pregnancy or birth of a child if it's on her MC. Apparently, Howard Sepphoris, when he passed away, he had transiting Pluto on his MC. I looked this up and I looked at his date of birth, and I thought it was really interesting. He's a very interesting guy. So he worked with um, Liz Green to write the book of the 12th houses. He also has his uh, natal moon. This is a natal moon in Taurus in the fourth house. Apparently, people who have um, natal moons in Taurus are usually they want to bring something beautiful into the world, and that's an indication of um, it's an indication of trying to bring something greater than that person into the world of something beautiful. So his moon was in Taurus, and his natal Mercury was in Aries too. It was in the second house. So he was an author. So he Mercury, natal Mercury, is also in writing and communications. he made money off of his writing. He was an author. There it is. The second house, right there, is natal Mercury. So, anyway, he excellent book, The 12th Houses. Highly recommend it if you could find that one too. Uh, just superb. There's no crap at it all. His interpretations are spot on, and he was just a very, very nice guy. He's a brilliant author. Only made a few books, and I think with Liz Green, some of his books were Q&A from old lectures. So I guess they thought that doing Q&A was more, I guess, better. It was a little bit better. But, with Liz Green, I think she's excellent. I think all her books are great. But my only criticism towards her is there's some type of, I don't know. I don't know how to explain this. Some type of whining in it a bit. It's like whining, it's like, she says stuff. It's like, it makes sense. It really does make sense. But yet when she gets into stuff like, people when they learn their transits, she says you got to take the good with the bad, and you got to go through transits, whether or not you see them as bad. You got to, and I don't necessarily agree with that. But then she says, there are tough transits and you have to go through them, which is true if you could learn them, right? It takes a while, but she's just, no, it's just every transit, when the transiting planets conjunct to the natal planets, and if it's big and bad, it has to do with Uranus or Neptune or Pluto, the old planets that go around the sun, the chart. I mean, if they have to do with something like that, and they conjunct to your natal ones, doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It depends on how it develops. It depends on, what happens at that time. It doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. And a lot of times you get a cookie at the end. So I'm trying to do this podcast. I hope you liked it. I'm going to try my next one soon, part 6. And thank you for listening. And if you have any questions about any of them, what I've said, please, you can message me. Send me a question, whatever you feel like doing.